Quran, Surah 78, on Naba, the Tidings. What are they asking one another about? About the momentous news over which they disagree. But no, they will come to know. Again, no, they will come to know. Have we not smoothed out the earth like a bed, and made the mountains as its pegs, and created you in pairs, and made you sleep for rest, and made the night as a cover, and made the day for livelihood, and built above you 7 mighty heavens, and placed in them a shining lamp, and sent down from rainclouds pouring water, producing by it grain and various plants and dense orchards. Indeed, the day of final decision is an appointed time. It is the day the trumpet will be blown, and you will all come forth in crowds. The sky will be split open, becoming many gates, and the mountains will be blown away, becoming like a mirage. Indeed, hell is lying in ambush as a home for the transgressors, where they will remain for endless ages, where they will not taste any coolness or drink, except boiling water and oozing pus, a fitting reward, for they never expected any reckoning, and totally rejected our signs. And we have everything recorded precisely, so the deniers will be told, taste the punishment, for all you will get from us is more torment. Indeed, the righteous will have salvation, gardens, vineyards, and full-bosomed maidens of equal age, and full cups of pure wine, never to hear any idle talk or lying therein. A fitting reward as a generous gift from your Lord, the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything in between, the most compassionate. No one will dare to speak to him on the day the Holy Spirit and the angels will stand in ranks. None will talk except those granted permission by the most compassionate and whose words are true. That day is the ultimate truth. So let whoever wills take the path leading back to their Lord. Indeed, we have warned you of an imminent punishment, the day every person will see the consequences of what their hands have done, and the disbelievers will cry, I wish I were dust. And now the Arabic, as recited by Saad El-Ghamdi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عما يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم 7 شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها أحقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا.
This is an early Meccan surah. The Meccan part of that should not be too surprising by now. The Quran is clearly talking to non-believers and trying to convince them and giving some vivid imagery of the rewards and punishments for those who are good and those who are evil. Now, the title, The Tidings, it means tidings as in the good news, the gospel, if you want to use another word. But tidings here basically means good news, like in the nativity scene, where it says, I bring you tidings of great joy. And in some ways, the good news being given here by the Quran is somewhat similar to what God would accomplish through his son, Jesus Christ, which is conquering death. I have great news, the Quran is saying, even though it seems many of you don't want to hear it. This God who has revealed himself and his power and majesty in nature, he is promising us eternal life. In the next world, here are all these great things waiting for believers. So you must believe and do so before it's too late. And then we're given some natural imagery here to illustrate why you should believe, why you should be in awe of the creator of the world. This technique from the Quran, it's not new, but some of these specifics are new. Now, you can pick your favorite nature reference here. For me, the one that stands out is in verses 6 to 7. Have we not smoothed the earth out like a bed and made the mountains as its pegs? Now, you can really see that, right? It's just very visual. Just imagine the surface of the earth being rolled out like a bedspread, and then the mountains as pegs. These are desert Arabs after all, so this is clearly referring to tent pegs, and on a grand scale. The mountains are the pegs fixing the sky to the earth, keeping it from blowing away. Now, that's not super scientific. It's a solid holding down gases, but it's really not supposed to be. I guess not that isn't possible. But again, that's besides the point. It's not supposed to be scientific. It's supposed to invoke an awesome image. Something on a scale so grand as to boggle the mind as to how it could possibly be done. And it probably worked on many people. Again, not totally unique in the Quran. And there's nothing wrong with any of those other examples that we read when I was giving you the English translation there. The lamps, the seven heavens, the rains, the orchards. But that's just an example that really, really jumped off the page for me. And speaking of things that jump off the page, Yes, I will get to verse 33. I'm sure this is a line most remembered, particularly for the male audience, and I'm not going to ignore it. But first, I just wanted to get to, frankly, more important things. And the section regarding Judgment Day is the first of those more important things. Again, Judgment Day, it's hardly a new topic, but this sort of touches on a rather unique and very important point when it comes to Islamic salvation. Some of the nuts and bolts of heaven and hell. Now, Muslims, like Christians, they're not going to claim to know everything about what happens after this life and precisely how everything will play out for every person. Now, we know some things for certain, but other things are known only to God. For example, the church can tell you some surefire ways to attain salvation and give you a good guess about someone's fate upon death. But God could also be acting in ways unknown to us. We do not have a complete picture. We just know what we're supposed to know. So there are some Christians that hold out hope eventually for everyone. Not based on anything that can be known for certain, but again, a hope that has not been dashed completely. And you see the same thing among many Muslims. Now, like Christians, there are some who say hell is permanent. You are not getting out of there. And there are those who think hell may be temporary, sort of an Islamic version of purgatory. And this isn't an ideological divide necessarily, although more liberal theologians tend to be more open to this idea, but not necessarily. I've seen the words hell is not forever in conservative commentaries and more liberal commentaries and in more mystical commentaries. And a big part of that is how you translate line 23 of this surah. Now, the version I gave you initially was the clear Quran, which states where they will remain for endless ages. You'll see a similar thing in more, let's say, Salafist type of translations. If you don't know what a Salafist is, just please search it. I'm not going to go into that here, but you might also use the word fundamentalist, but I hate that word as well. Anyway, this is the orthodoxy of most of the, let's say, well-funded Sunni interpretations. But, as others will point out, the words don't actually say anything about eternity in the Arabic. Now, here are a few other interpretations. They will abide therein for ages. That's the famously literal Pickthall, or in it they shall remain for a long time. That's Muhammad Assad. And these versions really do have a strong case to make, because in Arabic it says for ages, not for the ages, not forever. The Arabic here is aqab. It's a plural form of a very long time. And people I really respect have noted that this means an unspecified period of time, but clearly a limited amount of time. So you are cut off from God, but not forever. And there's also a supporting hadith tradition for this interpretation. Sahih Bukhari, number 6560. Allah's messenger said, when the people of paradise have entered paradise, and the people of the fire have entered the fire, Allah will say, take out of the fire whoever has got faith equal to a mustard seed in his heart. They will come out, and by that time they will have burnt and become like coal. And then they will be thrown into the river of Al-Hayat, life. It's the river of life. And they will spring up just as a seed grows on the bank of a rainwater stream. The prophet said, don't you see that the germinating seed comes out yellow and twisted? So here you have someone kind of coming out of the fire. So those claiming in Islam that hell is temporary, they are actually standing on very defensible ground. This isn't just squishy, bleeding heart stuff. This is solid theology, Islamically speaking. On a side note, it also gives some cynic points to Christianity, in the Pascal's wager sense, in that Christian hell is much more likely to be permanent than Muslim hell. So, choose accordingly. Of course, I'm not really serious about that. For those who don't know, Pascal's wager is sort of a logical justification for religious belief, as in you should believe just in case. It's sort of a insurance policy, a loss aversion strategy. If you don't believe in God, the possible penalties are just unfathomable if you are wrong, if you're really thinking about it. So not believing in God, horrible possible consequences. But if you do believe in God, in that case, and you're wrong, well, no big deal. You don't even know anyway because you've died. It's a coldly cynical thing, but it's thought-provoking. Of course, as I've explained before, I'm not a huge believer in the sort of gotcha version of the afterlife where God condemns people on technicalities or totally understandable errors. God wants your heart, not a hedged bet acknowledging him. And if your heart is not with God, you're building a foundation in the sand. As line 21 states in this surah, hell is lying in ambush. And if God is not in your heart, if you're just hedging your bets, really, you're walking right into Satan's trap. Okay, now to the main event, so to speak. Although a somewhat unimportant main event. Just kind of funny. This is being recorded not long after Mike Tyson fought some kind of YouTuber. And that was the main event. But, if you're a serious fighting fan or someone who's really into boxing, I mean, I'm not. I don't know who the main boxers are, but it's not a serious type of a main event. It's a spectacle, a sideshow. And that's kind of what this is. But to heck with it. We're going to have some fun with it. So, line 33. It really stands out for some pretty obvious reasons. So we could treat it as just another line, or we can do the more interesting thing and just dive right in. Line 33. The Quran is talking about the rewards of the afterlife, as it often does. And you get an English translation like this: and full-breasted companions of equal age, or the voluptuous women of equal age, or the more modest, splendid companions well matched. Now, before I get into the Arabic, this isn't something that is the result of sex-crazed men being all the translators. All right, one of those I just gave you was the Sahih International that says full-breasted companions of equal age. Well, that translation was done by 3 women. So some see this in a more spiritual sense, not those 3 women, and we'll get to that. But at first, I think we just need to accept a certain reality. While reading the Quran about the afterlife, the Islamic vision of paradise simply has more of a sensual element to it than does the Christian vision of paradise. That's just true. It's not Orientalism or colonialism or looking down on something and viewing it as more primitive. It's just a fact. Islam is specifically talking about companionship here and using sexual language, or at least something that could be seen by some as sexual language. And it fits, in with descriptions of paradise that are all over the place in the Quran. This is not an isolated incident. All over, you're going to see things like this, and food and drink and couches for comfort, that sort of thing. Again, all over the place. But the Christian conception of heaven is usually presented differently, and not without reason. Jesus even explained himself that people are not going to be married in heaven. Heaven is the presence of God. Hell is the absence of God. If you are a Christian hoping for an afterlife where perfect women will constantly have sex with you while they're feeding you grapes, you're probably in the wrong place. Again, not that all Muslims believe that, but there are some who do. And it's a defensible belief. It doesn't come from nowhere. Now, we'll get to the more spiritual interpretations in a bit, but the translators tend to go with a more physical version regarding this line, such as Pickthall's voluptuous women. Now, by the way, voluptuous, it's not a common word anymore. Funny enough, it seems to be very common in translations of this. Of course, in Pickthall's defense, that was probably at least 100 years ago. But anyway, for those who don't know, voluptuous, by the way, don't Google this. I did that once just to see how it was spelled. Don't do that. All right. So for those who don't know, voluptuous means a woman with the classic and maybe even extreme versions of the classic hourglass figure. That means large hips, small waist, large, you know what. Now think of it the way pinup girls used to look before, say, the 1970s. The Arabic word in the Quran is a noun version of the verb ka'aba, which means to be full and round, and alternately, to make a cube. Now, yes, that is the same root as Kaaba, that giant thing in the middle of Mecca. But the cube part obviously doesn't play a key role here. The key shape here is round. Now, the noun used is kaib, which means a woman's parts that are full and round, or even swelling. It's actually in the dictionary as that. It's actually the plural ka'alba, meaning well-endowed girls. Girls, I use that term loosely. It could be women, but there seems to be an implication that we're talking about young women or girls here. I won't get as explicit as some commentaries I have seen about why this is, but think of a teenager or someone in their 20s. The word for virgin also comes from this root. So that's the word. And if you are doing an English version of the Quran, you can just print that word, as many translators do, or you can start looking for more similar words that you think the Quran may be hinting at. A similar noun can mean someone who is distinguished, capable, successful, which gives a bit of runway to a more spiritual interpretation, such as splendid companions well matched, meaning don't just think in terms of age and physical appearance. You will be given someone who will delight you, yes, but someone of your level who will compliment you well. This word can also mean glorious, maybe a hint at the more spiritual nature of the afterlife. For example, Muhammad Assad will translate this as splendid companions well matched, and then take that same concept into the next verse, indicating that the promised cup being given out to people in heaven, it's not literally a cup full of wine, but a cup full of happiness. He notes that the Arabic word that is in the Quran, in line 33, that we've been talking so much about, it is indeed a euphemism for a young girl whose breasts are starting to become prominent. And you can read it that way. But perhaps there is a bit more there than a sexual reference. Perhaps, you might think, there is more there. This is the Quran after all. Just look at the subject matter. Or, alternately, maybe it's exactly what it looks like. Or maybe there's a more universal message implied here, as in, maybe it's not just for men. I mean, women go to paradise too, right? What do they get? Voluptuous women? That wouldn't make sense. That is, unless they want to actually, do things with those women, but that's something the Quran is going to frown upon and clearly would not endorse, so that doesn't make sense. So maybe, is this for everyone? A universal promise of great companionship? Or maybe this is exactly what it looks like. An extremely vivid, appealing message to men, and a real good one. I mean, even in just words, this type of thing will draw a man's attention, especially a young man's attention. Personally, I could go either way on this one. Both sides actually make some sense. And maybe they're both right. Maybe the 20-year-old reading line 33 in a certain way will get exactly what he sees in it. And maybe the old, spiritually inclined woman will get exactly what she sees in it. That's the magic of a good religious text, to draw people towards you in a way that they start projecting good things onto the text that, frankly, may or may not be there. So, with line 33, when it comes to this line that we have probably dedicated way too much time to, I advise you to go ahead and project away. And in this case, you just might learn more about yourself than about the actual intent of this ancient text. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time. Inshallah.